US, and I certified with them to use their frameworks and be able to come back to Australia and deliver their learning and development programs here. So that's sort of where that journey took me, in that specialization of cultural intelligence and cross-cultural relations. And through that, then I found this opportunity to get involved in some mentoring work, helping job seekers or migrant job seekers to understand the Australian culture, because it is a very different mindset. When you come here from Iran or Syria or Pakistan or India, the cultural values are so different, and nobody really explains that to you. You know, what is culture? It's how we do things around here. How do we do things in Australia? How do you define that? How do you explain that to somebody who's a newcomer so that they can tap into that and understand that, and understand what's expected in an interview situation or from a future potential employer? So that's how I got involved in mentoring work, and I love it.
That must be quite rewarding. I mean, that's obviously helping people at a very critical point in their lives. So well done to you for that. That is just fantastic. Mm-hmm. So tell me a bit more about the transition from, you come here from the Middle East, and obviously this is, you know, Australia's culturally quite different. Not so dissimilar from the UK, I guess, where you started your journey, but certainly very different from the previous 18 years of your life. And you're in these, you know, this senior role within the government of Dubai, and working in the Emirates, and then you come and work for a private company in Australia. Tell me a little bit about that. That must be quite a different experience.
It was quite a transition. I had worked with a lot of Australians back in Dubai. In fact, one of my CEOs, I recall, was Australian. And so I understood the sort of the work culture, the work ethic. And as you say, it was quite similar to the UK. But coming to Australia, yeah, it was a culture shock. You know, you think you're coming to an English-speaking country, but as you know, hailing from the UK as well, there are differences. And whether it's, you know, the subtleties of language, or whether it's in the humor, or whether it's just the tremendously relaxed nature here. You know, the UK is, I'd say, a little bit more formal. We don't always say what we mean out of respect for the other person. Here, it's a very frank culture. We say it as it is, and it takes some getting used to. And I think when it comes to our cultural values, we don't essentially ever change. So I think some of those British sensibilities that I have, they're not going to change. But it is about understanding how to adapt to the local environment so that you are more approachable. People can connect with you a little bit better. And I think that's a skill set I've definitely developed over the years, is adapting and allowing people to feel more comfortable in my presence. So that I'm not this sort of unknown entity that has this completely different expression or representation that people perhaps can't tap into or can't connect with.
Did you find, from an employment perspective, I guess a big transition going from a government position like that to a private company?
Yes, the culture was very different. A family business is very different. There's a lot more emotion, you know, in every meeting, because everyone's very passionately involved. All the family members were involved in the business. There's a lot of decision makers. There is not as much cut through in terms of ownership of decision making, which surprisingly I had a lot more in the government sector in Dubai, because things were moving at such fast speed. You had to keep going. So I was quite empowered. Having said that, there's a lot of similarities. You will find somewhere like Dubai, where there was an initiative to fast track the Emiratis into senior positions. That's not very different to a family business, you know, where a son or a cousin or a grandchild is fast tracked into a position and given a tremendous amount of responsibility, and it's an expectation within the family that they will step up and they will step in. But you know, you can only get 10 years of experience in 10 years. You can't fast track that. So I've seen a lot of situations play out because of that tremendous amount of pressure that was very similar in the Emirati workspace as it is in family business. So not surprisingly, when I first set up my business, I started working with quite a few family businesses to help them overcome that dynamic.
So that brings us to 5 years ago. You took what I always consider for people a very brave step when they set up and found their own business and start to make a living out of trading themselves. I always admire people that have taken that leap, because there's always so much change involved and so many challenges that goes with it. So maybe tell us the last part of your story about setting up a company and what made you do that.
Gosh, it is hard, isn't it? It's really hard because you're talking about yourself, whereas when you're promoting and talking about someone or something else, it's so much easier. You know, you're representing the government of Dubai and you stand there and you've got to talk about their initiatives. Fantastic. There's a tremendous amount of support and support systems that help you do that. But when you've got to stand up and talk about yourself and what you do, and you know, be in a forum like this with you, it's a lot harder because you're kind of on your own. It's been a tremendous journey. It's been a hard journey, but it's been a very enjoyable journey as well, in really settling into that alignment of what I think my skill set is and what I have to offer, and what fulfills me and brings me joy. And so I did go off on my own, partly out of a need to do so. I think I'd had enough of working for other people. I think you hear that story quite often. But also I'd taken a sabbatical. I took a year out of life because, as I told you, I'd had a non-stop, very active life. So when my daughter was independent, she'd finished up at uni, she decided to move to the Gold Coast. I thought, you know what, it's time for me to take a year off and do something for myself. Originally, I thought it would be 3 months. It ended up being a year. And as with these things, and I decided to pursue a passion, and I'd always wanted to dance.
Oh, wow.
So I took off to South America and I enrolled in tango school in Buenos Aires, and I in Spanish school. Yeah. And it was meant to be sort of a 4-week stint, but then everybody I met along the way had taken these big sabbaticals and taken time out of life. And, you know, I thought I'd meet all these sort of 18 to 20-year-olds, but I didn't. I met all these midlifers like me who were really on this mission to seek what they wanted to do and wanted space. And of course, when you go somewhere like South America, you need time to explore because it's a big continent. And that's how it transpired. And I came back to Australia probably 4 to 6 weeks later and thought, damn it, that was so much fun. I'm going back. And I packed my bags and I went back again. And I think in the space of a year and a half, I went to Buenos Aires 3 times. I was so passionate about the culture, the people, the dance experiences I had. And I just met so many people from all over the world. It was a very, very rich time for me where I could be in flow and find this creative expression. And so, of course, when you've been to Buenos Aires 3 times and you come back and you look at your bank account, it's not quite as healthy as when you left. And that's how I started my business. It's like, I need to make money again. So I'd like it to be a more sort of ambitious story than that, but that's really how my business started.
Well, I mean, you know, people have 100 reasons for starting businesses, and I think what people underestimate is how brave and how lonely you can be doing your own thing. And you know, it's a common theme that comes out when we talk to people, certainly CEOs and founders that are running successful businesses, but it's been a lonely journey getting there, and interesting. And you're certainly not short on bravery. I mean, you know, you've gone to the Middle East, you come back to Australia, you go back to South Africa to learn to dance, and then you come back and set up your own business. I mean, what a story! You couldn't make it up. So, so now you've set up Rabbani Collective. Maybe tell us a little bit about that organization and what it tries to do, and you know, the company itself, and how, you know, just a little bit about the story of it, I guess.
Yeah, so look, Rabbani Collective essentially is a business that helps organizations achieve their business outcomes by unlocking, I guess, the potential of their people.
Right.
So we essentially custom design learning and development programs that respond to what I call pain points in organizations. And it's quite interesting when you start on this journey, because people will contact you and say, oh, you know, I need this, I need a leadership program, I need a sales training program, and they think they've got the solution there, and you just need to design it and deliver it. But essentially, when you dig a bit deeper and you start engaging with stakeholders, you start to realize that the problem is not as they've articulated it. And so with this wealth of experience that I have over the past sort of several decades of my career in Dubai, holding senior management and leadership positions, I have a good holistic view of business operations as a whole. So if you come to me and say, you know, we need to improve our customer service standards and we need a sales training program, then I'll ask you, well, why? You know, and so I'm also a certified coach, by the way, so I'm very good at asking questions. And I will ask to speak to different stakeholders. And often you will find, as with one of my first businesses, actually one of my first client projects, which started off as a sales training program and ended up being a one-year remit, with them, was all about understanding that actually they don't have a client or a customer-centric culture. So we had to go back in this, it was a rather large and successful family business on the face of it, but we needed to work our way back, because it's all well and good to come in and train your sales associates. But if you don't have a customer-centric culture in your organization, they're not going to be able to deliver on that. So what are they being measured on? What are the support systems in the business? You know, what is your sort of employee framework? What's going on there? How are you motivating your people? And so you start to uncover a lot of sort of problems along the way that need to be addressed before you can actually get to what they've asked you to do. So there's, you know, the organizations, I'm very fortunate to work with organizations that have given me a lot of trust and allowed me the opportunity to really go in and, you know, lift the hood and get in there in the engine and speak to different stakeholders and find out what's happening, what are the pain points. And out of that, we start developing systems, we start training people, we start working on things like organizational culture, to really, what I said earlier, unlock the potential of people, because you can't do that by putting people in a training room and training them for 2 days and then spitting them back out into the same culture and the same organizational systems and expecting them to behave differently. So this is sort of a journey that I find myself on, is that I can be called in for any scope of work, but then through discussion and through that engagement with people across the organization, we then build on that and come back with a really successful program. And it may mean that people have to invest more time, more energy, and obviously more finances to get to the end result. But we do then achieve together, hence the name Collective, Rabbani Collective, the end result that they set out to.
Wow. So, I mean, you've touched on some of the most critical elements of running any business, and you know, from the experience that we have as management advisors into organizations, and we focus more on the business systems, one of the things we always trip across is cultural problems drive as many poor business results as bad business processes and systems. And, you know, one doesn't work that well without the other. In either way around, you can have a great culture and bad systems and the business will still struggle. Or you can have a business that's got a bad culture and bad systems and they're normally in crisis. But certainly you are dealing with the critical elements, and it's great that you can get in and understand what the key drivers of some of those behaviors are before you start pulling change levers, like, you know, leadership programs or whatever it may be.
Absolutely, because otherwise it's just a band-aid solution. You know, it doesn't actually change the behaviors. It doesn't support the people in doing what you really want them to do. There's a whole back end, like you say, to that, whether it's systems or whether it's the more sort of sometimes intangibles as culture, and not a lot of leaders fully understand the value of that. Some of them still see it as being, you know, sort of the soft